Alright guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be covering the top 10 most common mistakes new players will make in TBC Classic. By avoiding these mistakes you will save yourself hours and hours playtime and probably quite a lot of gold. If you guys want to catch my live streams for some TBC raiding, please be sure to give my Twitch a quick follow in the description. I'm going to be building a monster streaming PC very soon, which I will make a video about. I'm just waiting for the new Nvidia graphics cards to get back into stock, so that'll probably be in the next 2 years or something. But anyway, let's jump into the video. First point on this video, Shatar reputation mistakes. Everyone is probably going to make this mistake, but do not, under pain of death, do any Shatar quest or Tempest Keep dungeon until you are honoured with the Shatar, apart from the Karazhan achievement run. But it may be thinking, Metagoblin bruv, I need those rep items as soon as possible. Why would you tell me not to farm Shatar rep? And the reason is because every time you turn in a Scryer or Aldor rep item, you gain 50% of the rep gained secretly as Shatari rep. It doesn't actually appear on the screen that you get the rep, but if you look at your reputation bar, it will increase and it will go all the way up until honoured by using this method. You can farm Aldor or Scryer rep with items like Sunfury Signets and Fel Armaments that can be found in the open world and in dungeons. You will need to grind this reputation anyway because you will need the shoulder enchant, so you may as well kill two birds with one stone. But when you're honoured, that's when you can start to do the quests in Neverstorm, do the key quest for the Alcatraz, and then just do your standard normal rep runs. The next big mistake people make is picking the incorrect Shatterer City reputation, which is obviously either the Aldor or Scryer reputations. The reason why people make mistakes with this is because they look at the short-term rewards that you get from the reputation rewards at honoured and revered, and then they just go for that. Whereas you need to be thinking more long-term, because you are going to replace those items probably very quickly in tier 4 and tier 5 raiding. And then you want the best in slot shoulder enchants. It's also important to note that the Shattered Sun Exalted Necklace rewards will give you different benefits, different proc effects, depending on whether you have Aldor or Scryer reputation at Exalted. I will make a more detailed video about this for every single class, but honestly, for the majority of people, if you're thinking long term and you're really min-maxing, the best option to go for literally every single class is to go for Aldor. So first of all, we have the healer option. I definitely recommend going Aldor because you get more healing power with the shoulder enchant, and in the long term that's going to be better because, let's be honest, if you're running out of mana you're a bad healer, and if you're stacking mana potions and everything like that, in the long term you will not need that MP5. The healing power will be better and will probably be better for PvP too. When it comes to caster DPS, flat spell damage is simply always better, just simply provides more simulated DPS than stacking crit, so really should always just go for the spell damage option, and the Aldor provides the best spell damage option. Obviously Scryer has better short-term rewards like the blood gem and everything like that, and the difference between the shoulder enchants is not that huge, to be honest, so you make up your own mind about that, but you will replace that blood gem pretty quickly. For the hunter it's the same story. Flat out attack power will just provide more DPS, the Aldor enchant provides more attack power and also gives pretty good short-term rewards for a hunter. For melee DPS it's the same thing. Aldor provides more attack power, which will be better, especially because melee DPS have critical strike hit soft caps and everything like that. So in the long term, flat attack power is always going to be better, plus the necklace on the Aldor side is much better too. When it comes to tanking, the value of defense rating after you've got the hit cap starts to be, well, just worse than flat out avoidance stats like dodge, block and parry, so it's always better to just stack the pure avoidance stats. Anyway, let's move on to point number 3. We're going to have a round off of all the dumb dungeon mistakes that new players are going to make so that you won't make them. Some mobs in a Burning Crusade, and I'm talking trash mobs in dungeons, will absolutely catch you off guard and easily wipe the group because of their really goofy and irritating mechanics. First thing to note, if you're ever doing Shattered Halls, Shadow Labyrinth or Steam Vaults, you will definitely, and I mean definitely, need a class that can crowd control, preferably a mage, because there are some extremely huge pulls. Look at this pull in Shattered Halls, look how many mobs there are. You will need to pull all this in one go. You're going to need a lot of CC. The Blood Warders in Botanica will pop a Spell Reflect, which actually go on to multiple different enemies, right? And if a Warlock casts Seed of Corruption on that Reflect, the Seed of Corruption will reflect onto the Warlock, and if 2 Warlocks do it, it will just explode and entirely wipe the group. Goes without mentioning that CC will be reflected, and dots will be reflected and everything awkward like that, so a lot of the time the spellcasters honestly can't do that much. So yeah, casters should probably just use their wand on those enemies, or if you're playing a balanced druid, just go into cat form or something like that. The Arcatraz Sentinels in Arcatraz have a constant flowing chain lightning ability, right, which the tank can just about deal with. Melee DPS, just forget about it, stand out and fight to live another day. The Death Watchers in this dungeon will wipe the entire group if you don't kill them fast enough. And also remember to kill the corpses because they continuously spawn protein horrors, which will very likely attack the healer, and that can be very difficult to deal with. The Technicians in Blood Furnace will throw mines at you, and they can very easily one-shot you on heroic mode, so be careful of that. Never kill the slaves in slave pens or underbog because they will go passive when the leader is killed, so yeah, just kill the leader with single target damage and don't bother doing any AoE. In Shadow Labyrinth, remember to pull the Fell Overseer back because he will fear the tank, and then you'll just pull all those mobs in the room, so you got to pull that one back. And also remember in Shadow Labyrinth and Mana Tombs to clear the whole room of the second boss for Shadow Labyrinth and the first boss for Mana Tombs, otherwise if you pull that boss, all the mobs in the entire room will pull too. For a fourth point, do not forget to grind up your defense skill as a hunter or a caster. Everyone else probably already has it maxed out, especially if you leveled as Enhancement Shaman for the Shaman. But anyway, a caster without max defense skill will get one-shotted on a rare occasion that they pull aggro. It does happen from time to time, especially if you have your threat dropping ability on cooldown. And then sometimes it's actually totally unavoidable because, for instance, the Ogres in Gruul's Lair and Kargath Bladefist, the last boss of Shattered Halls, will charge random members of the group and inflict critical, life-threatening melee damage, basically one-shotting melee damage if you do not have your defense skill maxed out to 375. So go and sit on a mob and just let him, you know, do melee hits to you and get that defense skill grinded up. Another thing that is important to bear in mind, I have a bit of a theory. The shatter mechanic on Gruul was dealing insane damage to me on my Warlock, right? And despite the fact I was 20 yards away from everyone else, and I noticed that my defense skill was very low, so it may also be very risky having a low defense skill on certain boss mechanics like that. For our fifth point, we have forgetting to loot constantly in dungeons. A number of reasons why you should always be looting constantly in dungeons. First of all, dungeons drop non-green rep items that won't be rolled for, like the Coilfang ornaments, and Marks of Sargeras and Sunfury Signets like we mentioned before, and obviously those are really good rep items that you need, and the only way to loot them is, you know, your personal loot. There's also other things like Neverweave Cloth, and some mobs will actually drop motes, which can obviously sell for a decent amount on the auction house, so yeah, always be looting. For number 6, not waiting for everyone to turn in the flipping Ring of Blood quest. This is so frustrating and everyone makes this mistake. So the Ring of Blood is a quest chain where you kill mobs in an arena for truckloads of XP. It's definitely worth doing. But people are too quick about turning in the quest and accepting the new one, which just messes everything up because you can't take the new quest while still on the last quest, which means every party member ends up out of sync, people fall behind, and then they're forced to kill mobs that they don't need to kill, and the people who get, you know, too far ahead, they just leave the group when they're done, right? And then you have to start all over again. Really, really frustrating. So be patient, and every time you're turning in each quest, wait for everyone else to turn in the quest too. And if you end up a little bit further ahead than the other people, let the others catch up. Let's talk about some Karazhan mistakes. So the first big mistake people make is not bringing a priest for every single run. You will need Shackle Undead, otherwise it's going to be very difficult for you to do certain trash pulls in the raid, and also some bosses like Morose. This doesn't mean you need like 3 priests per, you know, 25-man raid group, because obviously there's space for Shadow Priests too. You also want a Decurser in every group, which can either be a mage or a druid. Otherwise, again, it's going to be very frustrating and very difficult for you. Paladins, remember that you can use Turn Evil as a very useful CC for when Shackle Undead fails, but obviously be very careful of it because it is a fear. And overall, you want to be extremely careful in the first big room of all the undead servants and everything like that, because yeah, that one can be very difficult if you know, people are doing it for the first time. take your time and pull as little as possible with each pull. For number 8 we have not doing dungeon pre-quests. So the majority of TBC dungeon quests you can get them very quickly by, you know, the quest hub close to that dungeon, or sometimes even just outside the dungeon, but there are some lesser known dungeon pre-quests from longer chains that actually give really good rewards when you finally finish them. For instance, the extremely long Horde quest chain that gives the quest the Assassin in Hellfire Peninsula eventually leads into AC and gives a really good loot at the end. You also got I See Dead Draenei and Book of Fell Flames chain that eventually goes into Shadow Labyrinth. So do your research, get the add-on called Atlas Quest, which basically every time you look at any dungeon in Atlas it will also list all of the quests that you can do in that dungeon. Definitely recommend getting that add-on, doing research into all these cool pre-quests. Don't do AoE damage too early. So this isn't Wrath of the Lich King yet, where every single tank has AoE damage and their threat is massively increased, okay? You need to give the Protection Paladin 5 seconds before you can start to use your AoE DPS. And the reason why I say Protection Paladin is because if the tank is a Protection Warrior or a Druid tank, then you can just forget about it. Maybe do one Seeded Corruption in the middle of the fight, but if you keep doing Seeded Corruption or you keep doing Blizzard, you are just going to pull aggro, unless you have improved Blizzard. Obviously that provides for slow, which smooths out the experience a lot and makes it possible to do AoE pulls of a, you know, Warrior or Druid tank. But without that improved Blizzard talent from the Mage, yeah, I would just not even bother. And for our last point, for the love of God, avoid those Fellboars, okay? They're the most irritating mob in the world, because they don't just come up to you and deal damage and have a chance of dismounting you. They're extremely likely to dismount you because they charge at you the second you are in their aggro circle, which does, you know, it doesn't actually take, you don't have to be that close to them for you to be in their aggro circle. Then all of a sudden you're getting charged by a big boar, he's whacking you in the back and you get demounted. So avoid them as much as you can. My recommendation is, if you have to get near one, face one face to face, let the charge go off, because they can't demount you, or they shouldn't be able to demount you if you're facing them, because you have to wait for them, you know, for them to actually daze you, and they can't daze you if you're facing them. So face them, soak that charge, and then jump away while rotating your character in the middle of the jump to be facing the Fellboar to try and get an escape going. But majority of the time you are just going to have to demount and kill him. Anyway guys, that's where I'm going to end the video there. Please subscribe for more videos like this coming very, very soon. My name is Medigoblin. Until the next video, ciao.